Welcome to the DIY Goalie podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie.
Goalies, welcome back to another episode of the DIY Goalie podcast. Guess who's back?
Yay.
Back again. It's been a while since I've been on.
Well, the fact that we're in house right now is pretty crazy.
I was just gonna say we're doing our first ever live in-person podcast recording at the True North goaltending facility because we are in the middle of, well, technically not the middle. We're at the end of our first birthday celebration week, and we just decided that schedules lined up and we would try it out. So here we are.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting because I feel like if I start talking over Connor, he's just going to hit me where he can't do that normally. So the I hate yous might get a little escalated today. But yeah, we're here. We're coming in before a couple sessions for tonight. So as always, if you guys do find yourself in the Edmonton area, come check us out. Connor's got two. I had one, but with the first snowfall of the year for us, we're rescheduling that one because they wouldn't be able to get out here in time. So we're just gonna have some fun on here and wing it a little bit.
Yeah, so. sounds good. Yeah, no, this is a little weird. I can actually manhandle you this time. So yeah, no, I guess first off, just thank you to everybody for coming out to the facility and in our first birthday celebration here this week. So really appreciate that. This is actually my first time being here. Yeah. I've been preoccupied elsewhere the last 4 days, but it sounds like we've had a pretty good time with everybody coming through the doors here.
Yeah, this is my 5th day here in a row.
Wow, the boss of the company is here every day? Huh.
Yeah.
Unheard of.
And not getting paid for it. But, no, it's been a good week. We've had lots of fun stuff. We set up our fit lights. We have been playing around with the synaptic glasses, the strobe goggles that we have. Finally got around to putting out some of our merch that you can find online out at the facility. So that's been fun too. But yeah, no, it's been a good week of development. Got a lot of new faces out, which was good to see. So all in all, been a good week. And in one sense, I'm kind of glad it's over because, a little bit of breathing room again. But I know nobody can give me sympathy because it's all self-inflicted and I do it to myself. So,
Well, remember the last time that we were together, we were talking about load management.
Yeah.
And so this is exactly right there.
Yeah.
No, for me on my front, I've been dealing with our KC North group, our SPS Fusion group, my U18 AA group, other few odds and ends here and there. This month is busy for me in general, but
yeah,
it'll be a fun time nonetheless.
So,
here, but yeah,
I basically live at the facility, and Connor lives at doing all our out of facility sessions right now.
Which is so funny because last year was the opposite.
Yeah,
I lived here and you were out.
Yeah.
Doing everything.
So, flip-flopping. But you guys probably didn't listen or tune in to listen to us, chat about our lives. So we'll chat about what basically our life is all about and goaltending. So I kind of had the thought of coming on here to talk about the importance of simplicity when it comes to our approach to goaltending. There's a lot of goalies that I've seen lately and just in general that they do a little bit too much. And so that's kind of the theme that I wanted to touch on today and just kind of, hammer home the point to you guys that there's really, we don't have to do as much as we normally think we do. And a lot of times we have a little bit more time than we think we do as well as the play is developing. One of the sets of goalies, one of the teams that I work with, basically what the last couple weeks we've been focusing on has literally just been eliminating movement. There's been a lot of, drifting after pushing across or even driving forward with their knees and the butterfly, which is leading to some, a little bit of sliding forward while they're making their saves. And so that's kind of got me thinking about, touching on this topic and kind of getting through, or getting the message through, that there's a lot less that you guys really have to be doing than you think you do. So I think I've touched on it before, but I kind of like to tell my goalies that when you're doing something, when you're moving or whatever the case is, it should accomplish one of two things. It should either get you in position to make a save or be making the save. And if it's not helping you do one of those two things, we need to get rid of it. So like I said before, the little bit of drift at the end of a push, anytime we're moving while trying to make a save, it makes our life a little bit more difficult. The other kind of examples that I can think of is using our hands to swing us through a push on momentum. I find that that's pretty common for the younger goalies when they're trying to do inside edge pushes. That's probably where I see it the most. But the other thing I see lots too is a hand pulling in or dropping down and then coming up to try and make a save. But basically just anything that's not allowing us to either make a save or get into position to make a save, we need to eliminate. I do have some stuff on simplicity too for off the ice, but I'll let you chime in and kind of, put your 2 cents in.
How kind of, yeah, no, definitely for sure. And I find, because again, it's all habits at the end of the day, right? And it's funny enough, like I was dealing with that last night with my U18 group. One of our goalies who's really kind of not raw, but just like still a little kind of all over the place, just makes his initial save and then he's kind of scrambly, I guess, in a sense afterwards. So really with him, it was just trying to dial it back, make sure that we track that puck in, track that puck out, and we're just kind of, again, using our momentum, but not in the way that kids have been doing it or goalies have been doing it, like with the swinging of the arms and such, and just kind of throwing the body across. But it's like in, out, and we're getting that proper rotations, hands out in front. We're doing everything technically proper to get to our next position. Because again, like I like to talk about biomechanics a little bit, even though I am not well versed in biology whatsoever. But again, just like the head leads the head leads the shoulders lead the body leads the arms and the feet and everything. So it all kind of coincides together, essentially, right? So that was a big thing. And then with the other goalie, again, it was just kind of eliminating just some bad habits that we have, at least just kind of fine-tuning his movement, just making sure that what's it called, and train of thought is derailed, but that's still the ideas that we were trying to he had his weight was coming back when he's moving and such, and so he's giving him, like, he's just shortening himself by a few inches, and so he's having to reach out a little bit extra to make that save. So again, it all just starts just kind of with the habits that we have, and we want to replace we want to replace bad habits with good habits, and just kind of go from there. So again, if we're able to start simplifying our game earlier in our career, again, that in that longevity in the long run, it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it stems from panic. Like, I think goalies tend to, think that it's a quick play happening and they panic and they feel like they gotta just stretch or dive or do whatever they feel the need to do. And a lot of times I find as goalies we have more time than we think. Most of the time. There are instances where, you kick out a rebound right on the guy's tape and it's in your net before you can even do anything. But for the most part, goalies see like a rebound coming back door, a pass coming back door, and the initial instinct is to just go. And if we can simplify things and not have the big extension, the big, stretch out, the big dive, the flat push, whatever, all of that, if we can kind of dial it down a little bit, break it down, have that rotation, get a good push across, and then we're leading with our body, just simplifies things, make things a lot easier. I know we have talked about it before, but I do just notice so many goalies with that panic element that it's like, okay, you don't need to necessarily just right off the hop get there. You have a little bit of time to try and get there properly. The other thing too is just related to on ice training. I think a lot of people try and overcomplicate things too. Like, we can keep things a lot more simple in our approach. You guys don't need to have 10 different shots in a drill necessarily, or have 8 different movement patterns leading into a shot or anything like that. Like, some of the most effective training is simple skating patterns, is simple tracking drills, right? Or save execution drills. Like, hammering that sort of stuff home. We talk about those like core foundational skills. That stuff is very effective when it comes to our training. Yes, we want to train like a game where there's lots of variables and things can happen and all that stuff, but you can't get there if you can't track a puck anyways. So a lot of times I feel like, people try and overcomplicate things with these props too. Like, you got ramps everywhere and rebounders and lights and all that, and all of that does have its place when used properly, and I think in small amounts, but people are trying to reinvent the wheel, right? And there's a reason why, if you look at like the fitness side of things, that like the stuff that's working nowadays is very similar to the stuff that's been working since the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, right? And no matter how many fads get thrown out there, a lot of times, if you just keep it simple, get back to basics, that can be a lot easier and a lot more effective in a lot of cases too.
Yeah. An example that I like to throw out, because again, we were talking about angles with our KC group, our KC North organizational skate last week. And so the best way that I could describe it to them, because we were talking about angles, squareness, positioning, is that kind of, if you think about it like a math equation, angles plus squareness equals positioning. It's the most basic term
and
that
depth.
you can. And well, we didn't touch so much on that. That's the next part. You have to learn how to subtract before you can multiply, or add them before you can multiply. Whatever. Shut up. See, WCB on the camera.
Harassment.
Thanks. Now you made me lose my train of thought.
You're talking about angles plus squareness equals
angles
positioning.
plus squareness equals positioning. Just add in depth in there as well. But it's still like if you think about just think about it, in terms like that. Step 1 equals step 2 equals step 3. You know what I mean? So it's again, I talked about it in previous podcasts where we talk about what's one thing that you want to focus on in a practice, what's one thing that you want to focus on in a game, and then you just hammer that home. Because if you try and focus on so much, you got to try and track the puck and get angle and be good at skating and this and that. Like, if you start piling too many things on your plate, which Nathan knows too much about, it's all going to come crashing down. You got to set that foundation first, which we've talked about a lot. But again, it's just start at step 1, then move on to step 2, and whichever kind of technique or whatever form it is that you're taking on, essentially, right? So just KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. That's another way of going about it as well.
Yeah. Well, and when you boil it down, right? I mean, as much as there's so much that goes into goaltending and successful goaltending, at the end of the day, the job is stop the puck. Like, no matter what you add to goaltending and how you go about it, legitimately, at the end of the day, your job is to make a save. And I think sometimes we get caught up in, because there's so many variables that go into goaltending, and because there's so much that's like a part of it, I think we get a little too caught up in trying to make that work, as opposed to it just like being what it is.
Special guest star Emerson Monday decides to take over here, so I'll just take a pause for a second. Yeah, and same thing applies to off-ice programs as well too, right? You know, like obviously in a camp setting we have a bunch of different stations, bunch of different ball drills, stretching drills, kind of workout-ish drills in general. But really at the end of the day, you're going to want to have a program that's going to not only set you up for success, but is also going to simplify things to a point where it's touch and go on kind of different aspects of your game. Ball drills for the hand-eye coordination, strength workouts for strength, basically, right? Can you tell we work out a whole lot?
How deep and profound of you?
But it's that general point, right? Because you know you're not like, you don't need to do or have like a 17-step workout program that goes into depth about how to, you know, build up your triceps to a certain mass, or how to you know, train your eyes to the point where they hurt afterwards, or you know what I mean. It's just, you know, goalies are such interesting creatures, you know, where they have this they have their style and just kind of how they do things, and their routines and such, you know, where you see guys like Connor Hellebuck as an example, who does like the eye twitch thing on the bench to, you know, start the game. He's working his eyes, but again, he's just doing something as simple as that, picking different points in the arena to be looking at and make sure that he's hitting them a certain amount of times. I don't know if that's actually the case, but like that's the general premise that I'm going with. But you know, just things like that. You know, like why are we doing things to make it more complicated for ourselves? Why are we doing things, you know, that is taking away more energy from us, rather than when we should be putting that energy into making the save, into the game? Yeah. You know, things like that. So why are we making things more complicated for ourselves?
Just build on the off-ice side of things too. That goes for like routines as well. If you guys have a pregame routine, the more complicated that you make it, the harder it is to replicate, and kind of the more likely you are to introduce anxiety if things aren't going well or whatever the case is. So the biggest thing, guys, is just try and do your best to obviously set yourself up for success, but it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Yeah. Like, simplify your game on the ice, simplify your approach both on and off the ice, and at the end of the day, it's a sport. At the end of the day, we are all doing it for fun. Don't make it too much more complicated than that. Yes, we want to get better. We want to put the work in. Obviously, most of you listening are probably wanting to get to some sort of high level or higher level than where you're at, whatever the case is. But at the same time, like, enjoy it while you can. Don't burn yourself out. Keep it simple. Don't panic on the ice. Don't introduce 20 million props, whether you're on or off the ice.
Or just don't introduce props in general. That's my personal take on it.
Yeah, I mean, we use like pylons. That's
okay. Well, no. That's no. We're gonna have a whole podcast on that. The pros and cons of props. I'm the cons for the record.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's the essence of it. Is we don't have to make it more complicated than it is. At the end of the day, stop the puck.
And like, obviously, like, we dragged this out to close to a 25-minute segment, but the overarching story of all this is don't make it complicated. Keep it simple, stupid.
We'll edit that, and then just that'll be the podcast. 5-second podcast this week, guys.
Yeah, there you go. My segment is going to have a little bit more in depth and such. And we've talked about it on the pod before, talking about communication with goaltending. And I'm going to try and take it a different way from when we talked about it before. Nathan's laughing at me, which is nothing new.
Or just anytime she saw you.
HR. I'm being bullied on my
Yeah.
job. Being bullied on my job. On like pause, not pause.
Okay.
Like I said, editing this is going to be so much fun. Jump back from the top. Yeah, going into my segment for today, which is going to be a little bit more, going to have a little more complication to it, I suppose, is talking about...
Keep it simple.
Talking about communication and goaltending. And we've touched on this before, at least I don't know so much about in depth, but I know that we have talked about it in previous podcast episodes. I'm going to try and take it a different way if we haven't already, but I wanted to talk at least about number one, how goalies should be communicating with their team. Number two, how goalies and goalie coaches can be communicating with each other, because I think that's an interesting aspect. Again, depends, because different goalies have different tendencies when dealing with their goalie coaches. Goalies and their regular coaches, and then goalies versus the general public, essentially, is kind of where I'm kind of going at it from today. I guess diving into this, as goalies, I like to put it as we're the quarterback of the team, essentially. You know, because we're the guy on the ice that can see everything in front of us, side to side, up and down, except for what's behind our net. You know, but we can generally see the whole area of the ice, and so we're able to have a better idea in reading plays and kind of reading kind of zone setups and whatever else. We have a better vantage point compared to regular players on the ice. So as goalies, number one, like, we got to be communicating with our team, with our defensemen or with our forwards. Man on, got time. Up the wall, whatever that may be. Wheel. Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. You hear that a lot.
That's all I used to yell.
Exactly. But just again, like, you're kind of that third eye for these players. You know, so take advantage of it. Goalies versus goalie coaches when it comes to communicating. Nathan, I think you can kind of touch on this as well. We've come across a bunch of different goalies. Some of whom will chat our ear off, some of whom we can barely get a word out edgewise. So it's about managing that communication, because you still got to get your point across in some way, shape, or form. But again, like we've talked about before, it's like the best goalie coaches that are on the ice are the goalies themselves, and so there needs to be some kind of dialogue, there's some kind of communication between goalie coach and the goalie in order to achieve the same goal. I've had goalies who will tell me where to go and how to get there. I know that you've had that as well. Be like, no, I've done this for X amount of years. I'm not changing that, even though it's not working. And then even though I've had my fair share of being on the ice where I've really had to kind of defend the position that I'm in order to drive the point across, in order to get them to not necessarily do what I want them to do, but to just be open and understanding to the point and the idea that I'm trying to drive home. You are going to clash with your goalie coach, and I think that's general across the board, essentially. And so again, you guys, the goalie and the goalie coach in particular, you guys are trying to come to the same goal at the end of the day. So it's how do you go about communicating that? How do you go about testing out both ideas and then trying to figure out what's going to be the best option moving forward. I'll let you touch on that before I move into the other two ones. You're laughing at me here, but I'm curious your thoughts.
I'm just waiting for my opportunity to be like, Connor, are you even a goalie?
That happened 3 times this past season, and I'm still triggered by that.
Yeah, I just like to slide that in when I get the
Like
chance
how
to.
every time that you talk.
Every time I talk, Emerson just doesn't like it. So she obviously is one of those goalies that does not agree with what I have to say.
Yeah, so
We're already clashing. Haven't even started working together yet. No, that's the big thing, I think, is the way you go about it. So if there's something that you don't understand or something that you don't agree with, bring it up in a way that's like, okay, I think this works better because, or I have another coach that said to do this instead because, and that communication, that two-way communication is big because then your current goalie coach could say something like, yes, that's true, but in this specific situation that we're working on, this is better. Or they could be like, okay, I see where they're coming from, but this is why I like this approach better. Why don't you try it out? If you don't like it, we can go back, or whatever the case is. Because if you're working with a solid goalie coach, they should be somewhat adaptable and somewhat open to working with you as well. Because like we've talked about, you're the one that knows yourself best as a goalie. But there is a way to go about it. Because if you just try and come in guns a-blazing and say, you suck at your job, you don't know what you're talking about, and all this stuff, then obviously that's not going to go over too well. No, so you guys have to go about it the right way. But I do think it's like, from a goalie coach's perspective, I enjoy that discussion. I enjoy that back and forth, that conversation. I enjoy being like, okay, you know what? I see where you're coming from. This is why I like this approach better, and it worked for me when I played. But I also understand that you're not me. So, let's try it out. If it doesn't work, then we'll go back to what you're doing. Sometimes we do that, and sometimes they try it out and they're like, oh, wow, that was way better. And then you're like, great, let's do that then. Or sometimes you find kind of a happy compromise in the middle too. And I think that's where being open about it and having that dialogue, but also, like, again, you have to be open to the rebuttal from your goalie coach. Your goalie coach should be open to what you have to say as well.
And just to kind of have an offshoot conversation of that, goalie coach versus goalie coach, essentially. You had that conversation fairly-ish recently. We won't go into the details on that. But, again, it's that same idea where, understand goalies that there is no, I shouldn't say that there is no goalie coach loyalty, but understand that because Coach A has told you to do this and you've been working with Coach A for so long, that when you transition over to Coach B, or you have Coach B come into the mix and they tell you that's something completely or slightly different, understand that it's all in the purpose of making you better. And so what I say is going to be different from what Nathan says. And so that's going to be up to you as the goalie to kind of figure out what's going to work best in the long run. And so then that's where that dialogue comes in. It can't just be, oh, Nathan told me that I shouldn't track the puck, so why is Coach Connor telling me to track the puck? I've been working with Coach Nathan for so long that he's never told me once to track the puck, and Coach Connor is just trying to ruin my game. That's not it at all. Again, it's you're going to have different voices. You're going to have different people in your ear kind of giving you different techniques, different topics to adjust on, and so your game evolves as you evolve as well. But again, there doesn't need to be any sort of goalie coach loyalty one way versus the other.
Yeah, and with that too, like, there's going to be something you can take away from everybody. And we talk lots about the tools in the toolbox, right? So the more tools that you have in your toolbox, you might pick up one tool from one coach only, and maybe another coach you get like 6 tools from. Yeah. But either way, there's always something that you can kind of go about it. Just as a side note too, goalie coach to goalie coach, the majority of those conversations, and yes, goalies, we do talk with other coaches of other companies or organizations or teams or whatever. Most of it's very productive and very open and collaborative. There's the odd time that it's not, and some guys are a little bit more set in their ways, but understand that too, goalies, that the goalie coaching community is also very small and very connected. And, you know, Connor talks lots about how he talks with Curtis Muka all the time. I talk to other guys around here too relatively often when I have time to, and I'm doing that more so now that I've started kind of doing some advising stuff. So it happens lots. And just so you know, guys, too, if you give a bad experience to another goalie coach, that word gets around pretty quickly and you might end up getting blacklisted a little bit. So just as an FYI, the hockey community is small, word gets around. So be aware of that. And sometimes switching goalie coaching providers may not get you away from that reputation.
Exactly.
So
moving on from that, because we probably delve too much into that, probably than we should. Conversation between goalies and their head coaches. We hear
non-existent.
Yeah, basically. We hear it every year. I see it every year on Facebook. My head coach doesn't say anything to me. My head coach, he tries to give me advice or tries to help, but he's not really helping. Or my head coach doesn't tell me who's starting until 5 minutes before puck drop, basically, right? So how do I go about asking or getting my head coach to give me more ice time or XYZ or whatever, right? So understand first off that sorry, I just got a text that she's sleeping. So
yay.
Understand goalies that head coaches, as much as we would like them to, know absolutely nothing about goaltending. And they are never going to learn anything about goaltending. Unless your head coach is a goalie, then that's just concerning in general. So you need to approach your head coach, or if you're a goalie parent, to approach the head coach with a level of understanding that, yes, your head coach may not fully understand or have an idea what it is that you are talking about, or just may not think the same way as you do. We get the response all the time. It's like, oh, I know nothing about goaltending. So it's kind of just thrown to the wind, essentially. So you need to, for lack of a better term, assert yourself with some confidence and say, I need to be notified 24 hours if I'm playing or not, because it helps me X, Y, and Z. And then you can kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of not necessarily go down the rabbit hole of why, but it's just, if you're able to make your point or bring your point across and say, I need to know that I'm starting 7 hours before puck drop because it helps me get ready. I have a routine in place that helps me get ready, and it's going to help me bring the best towards this team. Something along those lines, right? Or coach, I feel like I'm not being treated fairly in practice because of X, Y, Z. Whatever. Right? You have to approach this with some dominance, for lack of a better term, with some confidence, and you really need to articulate kind of your side of the story, just kind of your
Your point.
Thank you. And so then there can be some dialogue. Obviously, it varies different in age level. Obviously, a goalie parent shouldn't be talking on behalf of their U16 goaltender. Something to that extent. So I think again, as much as we would like them to, head coaches aren't or ever really going to understand goaltending. So we have to, I mean, even we as goalie coaches too have to come across to a point where like we have to assert ourselves with some confidence and be able to articulate ourselves clearly to get the point across in order to get them to somewhat understand where it is that we're coming from. Not this past skate, but the skate before, had a conversation with, again, my U18 doubles coach, and we were talking about just kind of the our secondary goalie who wasn't doing all that hot, and coach wasn't sure if he was going to play him this week. And I said, well, you think you should, like, even though he was coming off of a concussion, he's still moving well, he's making his saves. Obviously, you want to take him a little more carefully than you would, but he still deserves in some right to play, essentially, right? So we see it all the time. Do you ever recall? I'd have to reach out to Jamie maybe to get me to send it, but there's a clip of the Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending coach and Sheldon Keefe. You know which one I'm talking about? Yeah,
I was talking about it today, actually.
But there's a clip of. Oh, who was the goalie coach at that time with Toronto?
I can't remember the coach.
I can't remember his name either, but it was there. So there's a clip out there with Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending coach and Sheldon Keefe, and Sheldon was just absolute. Who was in that? Samsonov, who was on that team?
Yeah, I don't even remember.
I think it was Samsonov and Wool at the time, and so Keefe was ripping into one of those two.
Yeah. We need a save there.
Yeah, we need a save there, as it's a 5-on-1, 5-on-0. In Toronto's, I don't remember what it was.
It hit somebody's like pants, like it deflected off somebody's pants and went in, and Keefe's like, we need a save there, and the goalie coach is like, went off the guy's leg and went in. Like, what do you want from him? Well, we just need a save there.
Yeah, it's unrealistic is what it is, and so again, like, we have those, not arguments, but those dialogues with coaches. Probably far more than we'd like to admit, but just having just kind of asserting some sort of confidence or some sort of dominance to an extent to get your point across, essentially.
Yeah, the more I've thought about it, and this is kind of something that I've put together to best articulate my thoughts on it, but the best way I can explain it is most coaches, not every coach, but I think most coaches, and they won't ever admit it, and they might not even realize it themselves, but I think that they kind of feel like their goalies are more of a liability as opposed to an asset, like a bit of a burden, you know what I mean? Like somebody that they don't know anything about, that they have to try and incorporate into their practices, into their games, and yet they just want them to be magically good. Like, we need a save there, or we need better clutch performance or more consistency or whatever the case is, and it's like, well, what are you doing to help? And
it's flow drills where it's a 2-on-0 and
3-on-0 is for life. That's what I'm doing to help. But that's the thing, is even the coaches that are well intentioned, they're sitting there telling goalies to stay up more or to come out more or whatever the case is. And it's like, well, not necessarily. It's situational, right? And so that's the thing that we have to understand, is when people aren't goalie people and they're putting their thoughts in on goaltending, it puts us in a tough situation. So the best way that I kind of would say to go about it, so if you have a coach that's, for example, telling you to come out more, and you can literally be like, okay, but that's conflicting with what my goalie coach says, because if I come out too far in this instance, I can't get across for a lateral push or whatever the case is, right? You can say, okay, I can try and hold my feet longer, but at the same time, the kids are shooting at a speed now that if I hold too long, I'm not going to be able to get down in time for a shot along the ice. Having that open dialogue and having reasoning behind it, and also being able to say something along the lines too of, well, that's conflicting with XYZ that my goalie coach has talked to me about.
You know, and a lot of times too, you can connect your goalie coach with your coach. Like, for example, us, we're totally open to having those conversations. If you have a coach that's telling you, hey, you got to stand up on every single shot, or hey, we want you 2 feet out of your crease, send me an email. I will personally reach out to that coach and tell him he has no idea what he's talking about.
Nathan's willing to fight people, is what he's saying. So.
I will. So, but yeah, like that's the big thing is just, you know, come at it with a reasoning. Like anytime you're coming to these coaches, explain why you're coming to them. Do it respectfully and make your case and leave it at that. And don't go to your coaches over every little thing, because that's going to, you know, create the boy who cried wolf situation. But if you have something valid, bring it up and have reasoning to back it up, and just have a regular conversation about it.
And so then quickly, lastly, jumping into goalies versus the general public. So when I say general public, I'm talking like goalie parents, fans, essentially, right? So that's one of those ones where, especially like goalie parents in particular, you can have a goalie parent that is, with all due respect, a bit of a hard ass. Maybe first censor word in there. I'm gonna redo that. You can have goalie parents, with all due respect, can be a little too hard on their goalies. Maybe have some unrealistic expectations, or just like to talk for the sake of hearing them talk.
Like us.
Yeah, just a little bit. Or you can have some goalie parents who don't say anything, or you can have some goalie parents who say just enough. And then even by proxy as well, you know, you'll have some hockey parents on a team that will say, little Timmy just couldn't make a save tonight, but although little Johnny couldn't score a goal on an empty net, essentially, right? Like it's things like that. Obviously, like, as goalies who have goalie parents, and it's especially on the ride home, we don't want to disappoint mom and dad. But mom and dad also need to understand that your goalie is probably replaying everything that they did wrong from the first time that they did it wrong all the way until they get into bed at the way home, right? They're replaying that in their mind. And so the last thing that we as goalie parents want to be doing is jumping on that anymore, right? Because your goalie's doing that already. I think it's important to have that dialogue, at least with your goalie parent, to say, like, mom, dad, like, I just didn't play well, or just I'm really upset about that goal that went in, and then have a little bit of a dialogue about it, play it back. It can't be, well, you got scored on because you decided to lay down on the ice and make a scorpion save or whatever, right? Or no, you got scored on because your coach was trying to tell you to do this newfangled tracking thing when you should have just threw a limb out and see what happens, essentially.
Or
right?
you just suck.
Or you just suck, right? Like it's like it's things like that. Like you can't have that conversation. But I think it's important also in the same breath, you know, as for us as goalies, maybe try and walk mom and dad through what you were thinking. Maybe try and walk mom and dad through, you know, kind of the step-by-step process, how you saw the save, what you thought that you were on angle, how you thought you were making your save. And then if mom and dad know enough about goaltending, or are goaltending coaches themselves, you know, can maybe try and help break it down a little bit more. Otherwise, if it's a goalie parent that knows little to next to nothing about goaltending, it might just be one of those things where, what did you think? What would you think your goalie coach would have said? Something like that. There has to be like that, some constructive conversation. Not saying, Nathan, you suck. You know, like,
well, that's why I'm coaching, and not playing anymore. But you know,
but it's that general idea. And then by proxy, listening to, you know, random hockey parents that will say, yeah, little Timmy sucked because he couldn't make a save to save his life, or that's why our team lost. In one ear, out the other. That's the way it has to be, essentially. Because again, the best way to think about it is that, like, yeah, you know nothing about goaltending. You have no idea. And so throwing Stuart Skinner in the mix, like I like to do, well, even just as NHL fans in general, NHL fans, hockey fans are so funny to me, especially Oilers fans, because there's this whole talk about Connor Ingram, even like being this next savior for Edmonton. You know, he's not doing all that well in Bakersfield. But again, it's that same idea, just where hockey fans in general, they're like, just the goalies are always the scapegoat. Even though Connor McDavid can't put the puck in the back of his net to save his life, Leon Draisaitl just is slow on the ice. Evan Bouchard can't make a defensive play to save his life. Things like that, you know. But I digress. But that's just what I'm saying. Like for NHL goalies in particular, who have a more louder voice, or have much louder voices to be dealing with rather than regular minor hockey goalies, is with them it's probably shut off social media or in one ear out the other.
Yeah, I think it's a general systemic thing, because I mean, we hear the most of it because we're in the Edmonton area, obviously, around the Oilers. But even like after the end of last year, everybody was jumping on board to erect a statue of Dustin Wolf in downtown Calgary. Yeah. And this year, boy, has that sure changed so far. So I think, honestly, like what I would love to see, and I think would make a big difference, is having like segments on these broadcasts of like people properly breaking down certain things with goaltending, and actually, you know, being like I think there'd be a lot of fans that would probably be interested, that know nothing about goaltending, that would actually be interested in seeing somebody break something down, like it at intermission that a goalie was doing, like have like, you know, a goalie segment type deal.
You know what's funny is, so like if you were listening to the episode with my dad, he would tell you that there used to be something like that. I forget what the guy's name was, but there was a point on the broadcast, especially in the intermissions, where one of the broadcasters would break down, or Howie Meeker, that's his name. It was Howie. I think it was Howie Meeker that would jump on these broadcasts and would break down a save or a goal or whatever it was, essentially. But it had something to do with goaltending, I think. Kevin Woodley does a hit on one of the Edmonton radio stations here that talks about, where he talks about goaltending and such. Yeah. But I'm going to call out the radio stations and the broadcast stations here in Edmonton, because there's so much talk about it, and I listen to these hosts. I like listening to them, but I listen to these hosts, and I listen and see the comments of their fan bases, and it just makes my skin crawl. And just listening to just the takes that are out there, which some are not so bad, but some are absolutely horrible. But I'm going to be calling out these radio stations, or these stations in general. There's one I'm thinking of in particular, and I've texted them about it, saying that you guys need to have an actual goalie coach, whether it's me or Nathan or somebody in the Edmonton area, that can actually go and maybe break down last night's Oilers game, and break it down on both sides as here's who they play, who the Oilers play this upcoming weekend. Colorado. So here's what Mackenzie Blackwood did well. Here's what Stuart Skinner did well. Here's what Mackenzie Blackwood didn't do well. Here's what Stuart Skinner didn't do well. And then have that kind of video breakdown that we all like to do here. So I'm calling them out. That's what I'm doing. I'm calling them out and say, no, you guys have to be better than that. You guys need to have some actual proper goaltending representation on your stations. And I think until such time that happens, really anything that has to be said about goaltending is I will refuse to listen to it.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is it's just, commentary from the uneducated on it, right?
Exactly.
But that's why I think it'd be cool to have somebody on, get Henrik Lundqvist on. I can't even remember which one he's on in the
TNT,
States. Is it TNT?
Yeah, it's a TNT.
Okay. Henrik Lundqvist. You could have, I don't know. I don't like Kelly Rudy's comments about goaltending up here.
He's just an old dinosaur. So,
but
with all love, Kelly, seriously.
Yeah, we'll have to edit that out. No, I'm just kidding. But no, somebody that can be like, they do it for like goals or like defensive plays or stuff. They'll highlight and they'll be like, oh, look at, Quinn Hughes here, how he came up the rush and then there's a turnover, and look how he did 3 crossovers here and, back checked through the middle of the ice so he's able to get his guy, and they break those down. But I think it'd be helpful for just the average fan to get that breakdown when it comes to goaltending too, to just be like something like, hey, let's look at John Gibson on this play. He was a foot out of his crease and there was a backdoor threat and the pass came across and he wasn't able to get across in time and got beat. And that's why you coaches out there that keep telling goalies to come out more, maybe there's some situations where that doesn't work or whatever the case is. Or we could be like, hey, look at this transition that this goalie did really well from the overlap into the RVH or whatever the case is. Like, just getting a little bit more of that insight into goaltending. It doesn't have to be quite that technical. That's just off the top of my head as somebody who is a little bit more technical on it. But even just that general breakdown to get the concepts down and out there, I think would be very beneficial to just the average person getting more of an inside look to things. Because I don't think people realize just how much goes into goaltending and how many variables there are. And also people don't realize that we're one of the few positions in sports that can't really make things happen. Like, the play has to come to us. We can't really go out and change the course of what's happening in front of us. And if we do, we're going to get ourselves really out of position and get scored on anyways. So we kind of have to wait for things to develop and come to us. And so, you just can't really make things happen, and people don't really realize that. So I think that would go a long way too, just more of that mainstream kind of information out there, because a lot of these people won't go seek it out on their own. But if they're already watching the game, maybe they get a little kind of 10,000 foot overview breakdown of that, and then they're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. And then all of a sudden, they're waiting for the next one the next week or whatever on Hockey Night in Canada, that they can kind of get some tidbit of info there, and maybe that does spark some interest in learning more or whatever the case is. So I think that would go a long way in helping out too.
For the sake of devil's advocate, I suppose to an extent there already is that, but again, it's the highlight-ish real save, or just kind of, hey, here's how this save ended up developing into an offensive chance in the other, going the other way. What I'd like to see with that is, again, a breakdown of it using proper technical goalie terms. And then, again, kind of like you were saying already, it's like, here, coaches, this is why you should stop telling your goalies to be a foot further out of the crease, because this is what happens, essentially. And so as I'm thinking about it live, to add more things onto your plate, probably should be something that we tackle. I mean, I know that there's goalie resources out there already, but can be something that we can tackle, or even something like a technical term of the day. Like, here's what tracking means. This is the definition of it. This is the visualization of what it looks like. Something like that, right? So
yeah, the problem with that though is that a lot of the people that would see it
is people who
are people who are following us, because
agreed.
that are already goals.
I absolutely agree there. And so I never said it was a perfect system, but just something like that. And so again, just like I said, like, I'm going to be calling out our local radio stations here, but there's got to be some changes with that. And so how that looks.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think it's almost got to be someone more mainstream. Like, if you had somebody on, Sportsnet or TNT or ESPN that did, like, even if it was just on the Saturday night, like on Hockey Night in Canada, if it was like a coach's corner type segment just during one intermission in one of the games that are streamed or whatever played that whole day, just something to start sparking a little bit of interest, something to start explaining where people are like, oh, I never knew that, or like, oh, that's kind of interesting, I'd like to learn more, or whatever, right? That sort of stuff. I think that would go a long way. And then, not to beat the dead horse that we already have on this, but I think governing bodies need to do a better job too. Like, you know, your USA Hockey, your Hockey Canada, all that stuff too. Are there people trying to do good things? Yes, but I think there still needs to be more from them as well. But I digress. We've kind of gone down that road too many times.
And so this kind of did end up turning into an inadvertent third segment, I guess, today.
Yeah.
So
media.
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing else for me. You? Nothing?
No. Let's go play in the snow.
Sounds grand. It's cold out there and it's getting dark out too. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for another episode of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Make sure you guys follow us on our social media platforms, all at True North Goaltending, except on Instagram, because we like to be different. Why?
Because somebody else had the Instagram handle True North Goaltending, so I had to improvise.
And that one is
YEG Goalie Coach.
There we go. You guys can follow us on that front. You can follow myself on social media, particularly Instagram at MondayGC. If you are listening on the podcast platforms, whether that be Apple, iHeart, or Spotify, if you are a returning listener, thank you. Make sure you hit that share button. If you are a new listener to our little program, make sure you hit that follow button and also hit that share button, because the more goalies that we can bring together, the better. If you are watching over on the YouTube side of things, make sure, again, same idea, make sure you guys hit that share button and the like button, because it helps push the algorithm, and then also hit that subscribe button if you are a new viewer to our channel. Again, go check us out, TrueNorthGoaltending.com. We have lots of fun and exciting things happening in the works. Nathan, do we have anything new coming down the pipeline yet, or?
Not that I'm ready to announce. No, not that's far enough along. Quickly though, shout out to all of y'all in like the cool places around the world that tune in, like Brazil and Australia and, you know, France and Spain and all that. So
should just have an episode where it's just completely French.
Yeah. Sacré bleu.
Yeah, no, definitely our reach has expanded a lot further than we ever could have thought, so we do appreciate that. But yeah, go check us out, TrueNorthGoaltending.com. If you are in the Edmonton area and would like to book a session with us here at our lovely facility, you are more than welcome to do that. On top of that, on behalf of myself and Nathan Park, this has been the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Take some saves, goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Oh! Take care. We'll see you later.